Now you should be able to hear me. Thank you for the heads up. Otherwise, it would have been not very nice. Yeah. It should be okay now. I should be here. There's this annoyance that my Arturia does that it automatically turns off phantom power. And I had checked everything before the stream in the setup because I did recently change some stuff, which is what I was talking about before I muted or while I was muted. But one of the things this new interface does, the one that I got with my monitors like 3 months back, is that it turns off phantom power. And I only recently started using the microphone part, like in the last 2 weeks, I guess. RIP headphone users. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Yeah, we'll test the levels and everything a little bit later when the tracks are playing. But as I was saying, it turns off phantom power every time the device itself turns off, and the old one didn't do that. It just had a switch, which was for phantom power. This is like a button that you have to press, and it has to light up. So that's the one thing that I didn't check before going live, if everything was in order for me to go live. Anyway, as I was saying, we have 7 tracks for us to listen to. We'll start with this one over here. Naraya, Mind, Body, Soul, MP3. Somebody also told me for the SoundCloud ones I can play right here. That somebody is Infrashell here. As you can see, he told me. And that actually works. So we now don't have to worry about autoplay anymore, which is nice. It wasn't your fault. I pulled the fader of the controller up trying to make you audible, but forgot to turn it back down. Oh, sorry. I should just, to be honest, it is my fault. I should just have those things set up before the stream even starts, and that's the things that I need to have in my checklist. I have it written down somewhere, a whole checklist of all of the things that I need to do, but it's old, it's outdated. It doesn't include the new interface. It also doesn't include some of the new setups that I've been running. I've had audio issues for a while with the new interface. Turns out there was a buffer setting that was wrong somewhere. And this weekend I looked into that. Do you guys remember I did one high-tech stream where at a certain point the audio just started to crash every once in a while? I believe it was like after a break or something like that. I came back and the audio was all funky and it was all messed up. That crash used to happen for me constantly in certain Ableton projects, like very heavy ones. But it turned out there was like a buffer mismatch between the stuff that I use for my virtual mixer, this thing over here, and my audio interface. One was set to 1024, the other was 2048, so that they weren't aligned, and it's very heavy, like CPU intensive projects that would cause a problem. It would start to glitch out and then it wouldn't reset. So I had to manually go in here and then restart Audio Engine every time. And it would happen like every other playback, anytime that I press playback on a project. So that has been resolved now, which is very nice. It means that I can start working on some projects that I really couldn't be working on comfortably before. But in the process of trying to fix that, I sent them an email, the guys from Arturia, which created my audio interface. And like 5 minutes after, I resolved the problem. It's always like that when you need support for a thing. You go through it, you dig through it a little bit more rigorously, and then you just see a value right after you send the email of the setting that you need to change, essentially. Anyway, let's get back into the feedback itself. Naraya, Mind, Body, Soul. Let's have a listen. Nicely mixed vocals, although you could low pass the synths a little bit. Here they are very hard to hear. At this point, it's a little bit hard to understand where you're going with this, because there's a little progression in this part. The vocal is still very hard to hear here. At this point, the vocal is very loud, so that's very interesting. Definitely need some kick and bass cleaning. You can see the waveform of the bass line continuing in here as well. A little bit of a strange sidechain that you have going on. The second note, or the last note, is louder than the third note in the sequence, so you get this very strange rising effect to the bass. Normally that's not done. Normally the offbeat note is the loudest of the two, if you have a volume difference between them. I like the sound design, I like that sound. To be honest, I'm not a fan of the constant bandpass plugs like particles that are playing here. At this point, I think this melodic thing should shine through a little bit more, and you can do that by just removing that sequence that you have been playing basically from the intro. Is that a famous sample? The Ultimate Seduction sample must be nearly 30 years old, probably older. I've not been around long enough to know all of these samples. A little bit of a loud synth there. The build-up doesn't really signify that the track is going to be this high energy, so in my opinion it's a nice section, but you should maybe rise up a little bit slower in the first drop here, or in this second drop, the start of the second drop, I guess. Super duper old sample. Here again, I like the melodic parts a lot more than the other parts that you have. Overall, it's very muddy because of some too loud delays and reverbs, I would say. And the other thing is that this bandpass sequence that is still playing here has been playing for what feels like all important moments. The intro, the other melodic part, and the melodic part in this segment as well. And it feels like it ruins it a little bit for me because it just grabs a little bit too much attention there. Overall though, really nice track. I do really like it. Would nice to have maybe a third drop to completely finish it. So the next track is going to be Sickness over here. Now this is probably some very hard techno, knowing Oren and what he does. So this is going to be interesting, and I can play it from here so that we don't have any issues with autoplay. Yep, that sounds like techno. Very bass heavy for a fill there. Maybe a little too much. Yeah, now the fill feels heavier than the actual drop itself. Overall though, the mix sounds very, very clear. I'm always very impressed with how loud you can mix while maintaining a lot of the clarity that you have. Bit of hard stuff fills. Yes, exactly. I guess that's the difference between normal techno and hard techno, isn't it? It's just a little bit of a harder genre, a little bit faster, and it uses elements of hardstyle. Ooh.
Please get ready for an epidemic. The following combination of clicks and screeches might be contagious. Tits, 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 tits.
Really cool how you're slowly opening up the sub bass here.
Drop it, drop it, drop it.
Too much reverb? To be honest, I think it sounds fine, the amount of reverb that the elements have. The natural distress that backs the kick allows you to push the limiters a lot further than you can on a super clean Psy stuff. Works great as a clipping mask. I think the main thing is that he's using the clip to zero method for his mixes. That is, at least in my experience, the best way to get your mixes this loud. Not even in the mastering stage, just in the mixing stage. With like, okay, so for the mastering stage you would have like one final clipping limiter or clipper even. Because the clip to zero method is you just do everything with clippers in terms of the dynamics. I mean, that's the basis of it, but it's a very detailed technique, and Buffermatics has done some very cool stuff in terms of tutorials on that specific technique. Overall, though, it sounds very, very nice. I would like to have it a little bit longer, because it just suddenly cuts out for now, but I think it may be still work in progress. Yes, almost done. So, the next track is going to be this one over here. Hello Prof, this is my first release. I'm pretty much a noob about mixing mastering techniques. There's a lot of flaws that I heard after I released, but I wanted a pro ear to listen and make some criticism. Thank you in advance. I'll be at the stream. Udi1 Cool stuff. Where's my mouse? Sometimes I can see my mouse in OBS, then it's here on the screen, but it looks like it's in OBS, so I try to move it somewhere, and then it moves to a totally different part of the screen. That's just YouTuber problems. You guys will never understand. Anyway, sounds like a concept track. To me, not really. I do kind of see where it would sit in kind of the psytrance scene. It doesn't feel like it's very different. It definitely has a little bit of inspiration from Infected Mushroom. It has a little bit of inspiration from the more progressive side. So overall, I think it kind of neatly bridges the gap between those two styles. Anyway, next track is going to be Virtual Instinct here. Welcome to Acidland, 148 BPM master. Let's hope that he finally learned to keep his tracks a little bit more simple. I think I've heard this track before. I didn't play it in Discord, so I have to close out of it past the... I believe here the plugs weren't in the rhythm with the track. The plugs sound more like they're triplets and not rolling. Or swing maybe. Maybe not even triplets. Can show that here. This is offset here. So this would be triplets on the plugs. Overall, I think the kick could be a little bit shorter here. Just chop off this last bit over here so that this transient has the right amount of punch. I don't know if you cleaned this up or not. You must have resampled it, otherwise it wouldn't get this close, right? This rhythm also doesn't feel like it's in rhythm with the track. At least it sounds very strange in the way that the effect works here. I can't solve the sync of the other one. I forgot about the plugs. I mean, if you can't solve the sync, then remove the sound. If it doesn't work in the track, remove it. I feel like the kick transient is a little bit too bright here. I'm not a fan of your top loops either. Your hats. I like your open hat. But your closed hat is a little bit wonky sounding. Overall, it sounds really reverberated. Like you have a fairly long reverb on top of your drums, your top drums. Overall, in terms of the amount of things in here, it has already gotten better. I do think it can be a little bit better in terms of matching the elements together and matching the elements to the track, mainly with the rhythm and the patterns that you choose. Here it goes out of sync again, that vocal thing. You can just see, right, that there's flux happening This transition is very rough when it suddenly goes into that breakdown. Sidetrance is strange. I like this because it's strange. Because it's strange like me. Yes. Those drums, I would say, have a little bit of a strange rhythm to them. It's hard to kind of follow along with them in the dance. The other thing is that they are maybe a little bit too low, a little bit too rumbly. You could try to find some drums that are a little bit higher up in the spectrum. I mean the, like, big orchestral drum thing. That main zooming synth, this one over here that goes wah, I would take that out of this section over here and just have it in that one drop section so that it becomes a special element to that part of the track. And then you would need to find a similarly effective sound for this spot over here. Can I send you my track? I want your feedback. Exclamation point this, exclamation point feedback. This should wake up the bot and it should give you all of the information. Yes. You can submit right here in my Discord after reading the rules, of course. Yeah, this pattern doesn't work for me. Now we get to look at the kick and bass actually. It does seem cleaned. Overall, the tonality is nice. The kick has maybe a little bit of a strong high frequency transient. This area of the kick could be a little bit lower. Maybe half a dB to a dB, something like that. Overall though, it sounds very good. It definitely needs a lot more work for it to be finished, and there's just a few problems with the syncing that are really obvious and that you should fix. The other one, the main one is that plug, and the other one was that sound when you went into the break. That sound kind of tape delayed and slowed down, whereas the rest didn't. So that feels really off. I would just completely either remove that tape delay or do it on the track as a whole. But not something that is... But don't do something like this, like where they go out of sync with each other, because that can sound really off, especially when you're dancing to it and you want to stay in sync with the beat. If suddenly half the beat starts doing its own thing, then it sounds really off. Anyway, good track. Next up we have Cosmic Synthesia here, from last year actually, 2023 as you can see. But this is by Weldeck Music, who is also here in the chat. Already getting a few more people entering here, nice. How long is the wait list? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more tracks after this one. But this one is just 2 minutes. That's strange for a Sidetrance track. Maybe it's just like a demo or something. Overall very melodic for Sidetrance, so I'm wondering where this is gonna go. Fairly strange kick and bass. The kick sounds like the pitch click is way too long. Like it's zapping instead of clicking. Right, it's going choo choo instead of tuk tuk. Also the sub bass feels fairly wonky here off the kick. And then the bass line is barely audible. Some very clicky percussions in here as well, which I'm not really a fan of. Maybe it's not psytrance. It's definitely an attempt at like a very progressive form of psytrance. But it sounds like it's just a little bit off, you know what I mean? I think it's just mainly the kick and bass mixing. If you have a good kick and bass under this, it will sound more psytrance-like. And that clicky percussion has to go as well. For the rest though, the sound design is very psychedelic, so I do really like it. Kind of a random stop here. Doesn't really follow any structure. If this is the whole track, if this is the whole release, then it's definitely too short. Normal psytrance tracks tends to be between like 6 and 10 minutes long, not 2.5 minutes, and then just like a sudden ending. This would be really hard to mix into a other live set or something like that, because there's not enough space for you to actually really mix this in if you want to play it. Speaking about live sets, since there are 19 people now here, I do quickly want to take a little break to promote my latest DJ set. You can see it here on the Eclipse channel. Posted 2 days ago. This is my April set. This is my second time trying to DJ. We spent a lot of time making very cool visuals for this, as you can see from the preview here. Some cool AI stuff. With all of these things kind of morphing and stuff like that. So go watch this, go subscribe. We can use all of the watch time that we can get. If you want to support what we do here for all of the other artists as well, be sure to check that out. Next up, we have Infrashell here with Penoption. Okay. I don't know what that means, but as he said, we can play it in here, so we don't have autoplay. Learning project, welcome. This is a different idea. Okay, yeah. I mean, you should write the music that you want to write. If you ask specifically about making psytrance, then I'll tell you how to make psytrance. But if you don't exactly want to write that way, then you don't have to. I like this intro, nice and deep sounding. I like the choir that you've going on in here.
Mom? Hi, Mom. I'm walking in the forest with my friends, and I found something. Something mysterious.
I like it. The only thing that I would say is that I'm not really a fan of the transient of the kick, very knocky kind of sound. Like to see a low pass on that kick drum at around 8k, first of all. And the second thing is that there's like some comb filtering going on it, which you see coming in here. Overall, I would say if you're going for somewhat of like a Captain Hook kind of style, which this seemingly goes for, you could make your kick drum a lot darker. Hey, please tell me how to share my track on Discord. I am new to Discord. So after you have your account made and you're in my server through that link over there, you should land somewhere over here. And you just scroll down till you see feedback on stream. This is the right channel, and then you can just post it in here for it to show up in the queue right here. It's a conceptual space where there's a central observer with a 5-sided perimeter, but the inhabitants never know they are being watched. think that vocal delay going on for so long now is a little bit too long. Like at some point you have that melodic pluck and stuff like that, and that can overtake it with its own new delay that can then stay on for a while, you know? Now it just sounds like a runaway delay that you didn't control properly. I have no idea who Captain Hook is. I know the one from Peter Pan, but that's probably not talking about him. Do you not know who Captain Hook is? He makes very similar music to you. He is like one of the biggest artists in this kind of darker, groovier vibe of psytrance, I would say. Overall though, this does sound very, very good. Some small detail things that could be improved, but the main idea of the track is very well produced.
Akira's ultimate energy.
Nice mix on the vocals. Same was true in the intro.
Humans do all kinds of things during their lifetime, right? Discovering things, building things. Things like houses. High-speed trains, motorcycles, bridges and cities, rockets. So where do you suppose all that knowledge and energy comes from? Humans were once like monkeys, right? And before that, like reptiles.
No, the delay wasn't a runaway, that was all intentional. Okay, personally I would change it so that some of the other elements after it just take it over instead.
Lots of energy inside them.
That way you have a little bit more play with all of the delays and it doesn't stay so static in the background.
Even in the particles of dust and
Because for me as a listener, it does feel like it was a runaway one.
what sort of memories are hidden within them?
Thank you, it's not 100% finished details as you said.
What if everyone shares those?
If you're talking about details, then here, that sharp synth that is playing, that FM synth, I would low pass it. At least until the vocals stop, which should be right about here. And then you can high or low pass it in over time here, so that it builds up a little bit of extra energy. The other thing that I would do, since this is a breakdown, is to have the kick and bass maybe like 5 dB lower than it is in the drop. That way, when the kick and bass comes back in the drop, it has a lot more impact. Now back into a bit more of a rolling vibe. So not entirely Captain Hook style. Captain Hook will make one bass line and we'll use it throughout the whole track. And it will stay this like dark groovy bass line. Is it better to imitate S-Tracks or improve your concept? What do you think? I like this. I like the key change here. Now we're getting a little bit bright here with the top drums. They're a little bit too aggressive, I would say. Personally, I would develop out my own sound, which I hope I'm doing. I do like to draw inspiration from Asterix, but I don't want to sound exactly like him, you know? Yeah, here the top drums are starting to really get out of hand. That's right. It's getting very bright here, the track. And especially because the first drop was so dark, that sounds very, very off. But in general, the mix is just a little bit too bright here. Translator is suck. Yes. Translators suck indeed. Personally, throughout this track, I would have stayed with this more darker concept throughout the whole track. I think it will sound a little bit more uniform that way. I like brightness. I've always had a love for sidechains, giant brights as crash cymbals. I felt like it was all a little bit reverby, all a little bit long. That would partially explain it, but overall I just think it's a little bit mixed too bright. Even here, when you're going for more of a deeper vibe with the sound design and the lower, darker, groovier bass line, it still feels like a very bright sounding track. Personally, as I said, I would have done it slightly differently, but I guess it can work. It just needs adjustments, because especially that central part was just too bright in my opinion. Overall though, very, very good track. I like it. Very good sound design. So now it just should stop playing and it shouldn't play the next one. Let's test if that works. Yes, that works. Okay. So next up, he is also here in the chat. He goes by Acid Monkey. Hey, it is not finished yet, but I want to hear from you guys. Does it have a soul? Oh, interesting. This is called Party by Acid Monkey. Very attention-grabbing intro, very fast going between different elements. It feels like you're going through too many ideas here. This might be one of those tracks where you're trying to put a few too many ideas in every part of the track. Even here, the FM synth doesn't really do anything for me. I would just have the bandpass plugs in here and maybe some small effects and stuff like that, as opposed to two sequences. Yeah, here as well, I would just go for the clean kick and bass and the one-shots without that plucky ARP thing. Kick and bass definitely needs cleaning. As you can see, a lot of transient bleeding over here. But this is still work in progress, so that should probably be done later. I like this sound design over here. The mixing is a little bit bad. A lot of the leads are a little bit too loud, taking away from the main kick and bass. There's a lot of masking going on in here. The drums start playing at a random point in time. The open hat should probably start playing over here when we start the new section. I'm asking about the personal development. I mean, that's the same thing as just being an artist. Any artist is still personally developing. Yes, but I was thinking about it and I'm like split between two ideas literally. Here it already feels a little bit neater. It's just the mixing in this part where it falls a little bit flat for me. Here the vocals should either not exist or it should really have the space to come out. And that is probably an arrangement thing. You have to mute a couple of synths there. Overall though, the synths also need to just be a little bit quieter. Because they're overpowering your kick and bass. This section has a bitchin' vibe. It does have a bitchin' vibe. I do like the sound design, I like the arrangement, I like the amount of elements that you're using in these particular parts here. As earlier it was a little bit too full, here you're really hitting the sweet spot with how many elements you want to place at any point in time. Again, I really like the idea here that you're going for. At this point, the new synth that comes in should probably be very stereo, so that it doesn't sit in the way of the main idea here. But overall, the volume balancing is the main issue that I have between all of these elements. Now we have two sequences playing, and it's not clear which one is the main one that you want me to listen to, and which one is the supporting one for this part. Overall, the cymbals feel a little bit lifeless. They are maybe a bit too mono. Plugin like M Stereo Generator is very good for adding character high frequency stereo wave to a sound. In this case, you don't hear the difference because this is not actually the track that we're hearing. Recreating tracks that you enjoy is a great way to learn some tracks. Exactly. You take inspiration by examining other people's works, seeing what they do, and then you have to decide for yourself how do you implement that in a unique way. And if you don't do that second step, you're just copying. Which is not something that I would recommend. Suddenly the drums became a little bit louder there. Sounded like they suddenly opened some door or something and the high frequencies came through a little bit more. Here again, it repeats every 4 bars. Now we can check the cleanliness of the kick and bass, and we can definitely see that you're not resampling your bass line, which you should do. This is still work in progress, so you may do that later, but that's definitely something that I would recommend that you do at some point in this production. Again, it sounds like this one is a lot louder than the rest of the open hats. You can even see it on the spectrum analyzer this time, that this one versus that one. Right, if you look at this one versus the one before it, which is, I guess... Ah no, this is the kick. It's this one versus this one. Here versus here or here. You can see that this one looks a lot louder than these ones, for some reason. Overall though, nice idea. Definitely need some look into the details, but you're still working on it, so I'm sure that you will get to that. Moving on to the next track, we have Nomad Digital with Need Somebody. Let's see. This is also just a 2-minute track. We have a lot of...
I wish I could write a letter, 'cause I really need somebody.
Are you in the chat here? I hope that this is not going to cause me any copyright issues. Definitely not the music that we're normally into. I do like the mix. It sounds very, very clear. Overall though, it does sound a little bit too loud. Could be a bit more dynamic. And then here you can make it this loud so that you get a little bit more impact in the drop here. This part fixes it a little bit, but the part before this, the first segment of the drop, was a little bit too mono. By the way, I hope that these songs are not too loud for my voice, if they're mastered like this. Godsallemachtig. Vervelend internet. Waarom ben je zo lastig? Okay. Yeah, I just had a little disconnect there. Happens all the time. I should be back. This is -7 loves. Is this you as well? Because it says here Nomad Digital and you were... I assume that you're this guy, right? Waldeck Music here. Or are you listening along with a loves meter, maybe? He's analyzing my analyzers. Anyway, I stopped the playback because we had a little disconnect. I should be back now, so I'm just going to continue. We're in the second break here, and we're just going to continue listening. Hopefully, nothing important was removed here. I did stop speaking immediately because I caught it immediately. So it should be all good. Over here, when you go into a build-up like this, it could be interesting to make the vocal a lot more stereo. Overall, very interesting. I like the vibe. Definitely not the kind of music that I would normally listen to. But it does sound well produced. I like that. Very cool stuff. How many more tracks do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's have a listen at Learning Project here. Bass variations with 3 different synths plus 1 envelope 200 BPM E dot wave. This guy every Sunday has a new track ready for me to listen to. It's very interesting how he does it. I do often have to give him the same feedback though. Like even here, the bassline could close a lot faster so that you don't get this second click here. If I zoom in, you can see that there's this extra spike here, which is kind of a mimic of this transient. If your bassline closes faster, you won't get that. In this case, this is the actual transient of the bassline, and this is the second oscillation of it, and you can see that it's much louder. It's also higher up in the frequency spectrum, right? The second spike here. Normally you just, like the kick, want one spike on your bassline, but then you want a lot more sustain in the mid-range, because that's where the bassline kind of sits. This is only basslines. I don't know what's happening with your basslines, but they all sound too open, not plucky enough. This one doesn't even sound like it has a proper transient. You can see that, right? This is the transient, but this part over here is much louder. So the actual transient sounds like it's coming from here. the actual spike that we're listening to right now is this second spike over here and not the first one, which should be the main spike that we should hear. I'll show you how to make a bass line. Let me quickly get a kick. I'll show you what I mean in a little bit more in depth here. Yeah, this kick will have to do for now. Probably not the best one. I probably can have much better high-tech kick and basses, but I'm just going to make something quickly. Okay. Don't mind the quality of this bass line. I just want to show you the idea of the openness of the bass line in a little bit more detail. So say that I get a wavetable. Let's keep this accessible to everybody. Let's take this wavetable over here. I like to set the phase a little bit before the actual click of the wavetable. So the click exists over here. This is where the sharp frequency is, right? This is where the sharp spike is. So I like to set my phase a little bit before that. Now, because phase is rotational, that means that if I have the click at the very start here, I can set it to the end here and it will start playing, and then the click will immediately play. I set it up usually in a way that there's a zero crossing over here so that I don't get any nasty clicks from the attack itself. That way we can bring the attack a little bit lower. It sounds usually a little bit nicer if you do it that way. And then we'll go with 24 dB per octave filter. And I'll set up a LFO, something like this. Maybe a little bit lower. You were working in E, so that's also what I'm going to do. But you can already hear the difference between your bassline and my bassline, probably. I'm going to assign a volume macro here, so that we keep our bassline neatly cleaned up. And then we will have velocity on that as well. Now, of course, the sound isn't the best, but you can hear that we have this nice one click in here. Right, you can see that we have one click, as opposed to what you have, which is multiple clicks here. Bassline definitely doesn't sound the best, it's also a bit too loud. Even here, we could get it. You can hear the difference that we have in texture, right? And that this bassline is just a lot more clicky. And that's essentially what I'm going for with this explainer over here. Maybe I'm giving it a bit too much here. But that's the main idea of what you want from your bassline in terms of tonality, as opposed to what you have for your bassline. Can I do it with Vital? I mean, the process is the same. You just need a wavetable that is properly phased, for which I have a video coming out next week, actually. So that should be interesting. Welcome to Seizure Dance Music. Yes, exactly. You can just take that theory that I explained to you and implement that in Vital the way that you've done it before. You just need to understand where, for you, the problems are coming from. I cannot really sit here and spoon feed you a baseline. You have to learn how to do baseline stuff yourself. Ableton just crashed. Okay. I will just link you again to my ultimate guide. Because that just explains everything. I'm back on my old keyboard. My new keyboard broke. I mean new. It's being like a year old at this point, I guess. But it broke, so I'll have to buy a new one again. I want to go with a small form factor keyboard. The old one that I'm using here, you can sometimes hear me press enter and nothing happens. That's because the enter button, the main enter button, is broken here. So I tried to post that message in chat before, and it took me a while to realize that it didn't actually send. Anyway, next up we have Victor Maruka. I'm sorry. Hello everyone, I'm wrapping up the mix of this track. It's nearly done. I'd love some feedback. Equalix with ID unmastered. Let's have a listen. Google tells me it cannot scan your music for viruses, so that's nice. There might be a virus TI somewhere in here.
One amazing thing on the dance floor, particularly in the trance parties and festivals, is that everybody is equal. This is
the vocal is not really sitting on top of the track. Normally when you have a vocal like this, which tells a story, you want it to be audible throughout the whole track. And now the synths kind of cut off the vocal.
Which color you are. None of that matters on the dance floor. You're just all there sharing the joy and excitement of dancing together to music that you love. Dancing together to music.
I'm concerned about the phase in Vital. Then you need to check what the phase does inside of Vital and how it works. Like all of the tests that I do to arrive at my ideas, you can do the same thing, right? Is it just me, or does this feel out of key with what we had before? With that pad sound that we had before? Baseline needs to be cleaned up. As you can see, this transient is being pushed down here. You would need to resample it. That is also explained in the ultimate guide that I just linked. Overall, the track is a little bit empty. That one sound also sounded strange in terms of its key. You have a few strange way of changing patterns for the sounds. Like you switch patterns halfway through the section, which makes it very confusing to follow. Also at this point I would have hoped that we had a whole new selection of sounds, because now it starts to get boring having the same sounds over and over again.
This is the universal language, the internet.
Now the vocal is properly mixed.
Music.
You can hear the vocal coming through it.
And all borders. It doesn't matter if you're rich or don't have so much money, or which religion you are, or which color you are. None of that matters on the dance floor. You're just all there sharing the joy and excitement of dancing together to music that you
And at this point it becomes hard to understand the vocal. very strange kind of build-up atmosphere happening over here. I don't like this. Cleaning basslines is more creative or technical workflow. I mean, if somehow the kick bass without clean sound good to you should clean, you should always clean it. It is a technical thing. It is a technical improvement that you make to your bassline. I do like this melodic part over here, but overall it does feel like you're very much still a beginner and that you need to kind of get the right ear for the details that psytrance requires. I'm like, fade in out the wave file is good. Slight out of key buildup. It does feel like it's not all in the same key. Even here the melody, it feels a little bit off again. Yeah, you just take a wave recording of that bassline that you create a single note, and then you rearrange the bassline from that single note, making sure that you fade out, and then you don't filter it again. It's again all explained in this video over here. It is a little bit long, the video. It's 3.5 hours, but it is the ultimate guide, so just go watch that video and that explains everything you need to know, including the cleaning of the kick and bass. This one is clean, but just by virtue of it being a single bass note and it not extending into the kick. Yeah, the fade ins is probably not a good idea, but fade outs is a good idea. That's what you exactly want to do. It is going to depend on the exact sample. If you find that if you chop it up you get a nasty kind of transient, it might be nice to fade out the very first click. If the sample that at which you're cutting is not a crossover, that way you can make it into a crossover. You just fade out maybe 10 samples, something like that. I'm gonna say the mix of the sounds is very, very good, but I'm not a fan of the sounds that you have in itself and the way that you decided to get all the sounds together for the track, I guess. The mix is sounding okay. The production is the part that I have most issues with. LUFS is okay to sidetrans? Yes. If you're asking how many LUFS you usually master at, it's probably -7, -8-ish. But it's going to depend very much on the style that you're going for, the aggressiveness that you're going for as well. If you're making a softer track, then maybe -8, -9 would be better for you. Overall, I am a fan of the kick and bass tonality. I just think the track itself needs better production. The mix, though, is sounding very, very good for the stuff that you have. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll put on the mix so that you guys have something to listen to. I put this on 2 days ago as well, so I'll put on a new part that you guys haven't heard yet. But I'll take a 10-minute break and then I'll be back for some more tracks to review. We do have more over here. We have 1, 2, 3 more tracks here. You guys can keep sending them after the break. I'll probably do another hour, hour and a half at least of just sitting here. So if you have more tracks, then feel free to drop them. For now though, I'm going to take a quick break, fresh up my ears a little bit, and I'll play this mix while I'm gone. You can check out this mix, by the way, for anybody that wants to see it. I'll drop a link in the chat. We do really need some watch time, so consider supporting us throughout this project by just watching the whole thing. And then you'll have some nice music to enjoy as well. When you say -7 or -8, I assume you're talking momentary, not integrated, correct? -7 integrated would be bars, yes. Usually I check the loudest part of my mix to determine the final lefts, or which in that case will also be probably the loudest part of my master. I don't like to automate parameters on my master, so the loudest stuff in the mix is going to hit the limiters the hardest, and therefore it's also going to be the loudest stuff in the master. And it also depends from track to track, because I wanted you to hear that transition there. But it's going to depend from track to track, because I'm working currently on a track that has like a 4-minute intro. There it would be harder to get to an integrated LUFS target, but the momentary LUFS should be the same. Not saying it can be done, but for the tracks it will have to be produced in a very particular way to still sound natural. Yes, exactly. Mr. Goa, I would do both. Personally, I do for anything production, I don't put a limiter on it. Anything mix or master related, even the mix, I'll have a mix render and a master render that I then check on headphones or something like that. Anyway, this is our mix for April. If you want to support what we do for the Sidetrans community, you can obviously subscribe to the Eclipse Sound Syndicate. You can watch this mix over here. We need all the watch time that we can get, because that is very important for YouTube. We need to get to 4,000 hours. And currently we are at 1.3 thousand, I think. So we still have a ways to go, but I hope with monthly mixes and some more releases that we can get there, and that during the summer we just have monetization, and then the channel will naturally start growing. Because before that, if you don't have monetization yet, as we found out with this channel, it doesn't really grow. Like, I guess I've been getting used to having monetization on my own channel for so long that you don't really notice what the impact of it has, how it impacts just the discoverability of videos that you release from the moment that you release them. But I can really feel that whenever I release a mix on the Eclipse channel, or a release on the Eclipse channel, that it just has a harder time getting off the ground. Especially when it doesn't get copyright claimed. If it gets copyright claimed, like we had with our first release, it does really well, because then the copyright claimant puts ad on it. So for YouTube, that is the way to go. If you're not monetized yet, get a copyright claim, and then you will have ads, and you will get the benefits of having ads without actually having ads. The other thing that I'm scared of is all of the conversations with Projector, that they will just fizzle out, because I'm going to post those on a new channel, the Also Projector channel, which I showcased in the April Fool's video. But I'll probably post about them whenever the first conversations with Projector on that channel comes out, so that my audience will naturally kind of come over. Anyway, next up we have this one over here. Still very early days on this one for me. Still need to build a proper intro, as well as lots of mix downs still to do. Currently no sidechain and some phase issues, but some guidance on any issues would be much appreciated. We'll check it out for you. A little bit of a strange start here. I thought this was going to be Sidetrans, but it isn't, probably. Honestly, I wouldn't have any bass in this part here, since this seems to be some kind of build-up. A little bit of extra wobble to the bass would be nice, maybe. Just like a gritty layer on top that just adds a little bit of extra groove to it. You know what I mean? Kind of like a wobble bass. Also, I think the kick could have a little bit more impact, a little bit more punch. It feels very weak in the mix that you have currently. What did you guys use for the visuals? We used a model that was trained by Subject Ultra. A mix to -14 loves, is this a mistake? No. Whatever works for you, works for you. As long as you know what you're doing, and if that is correct, then it's gonna work. Because at the end of the day, if the mix needs to be louder, you can just turn it up. Give it more gain. Overall, I do like all of the different textures that you have in here. I'm not a fan of the very loud risers that you have. Like, it feels a little bit constant. We're rising again here. We have another pitch riser thing happening here. Overall, though, it does sound very nice. I like it. Next up we have Saranj Maiden 666. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I probably am. Your track is unfortunately not available because you shared a private track through the public URL. So if I go to a private track of mine, I should have some here. If I want to share this from the VD, the URL actually is going to look longer than the public one. So this is the public URL, right? This is what you sent me. What you want is a URL that looks somewhat like this, where you take the URL from the sharing option down here, where it gives you that link, as opposed to just from the URL that you see up top here. Apologies for posting drum and bass in the Sidetrans community. I try to make the best of it. You can post anything that you want in terms of music in here. So feel free to stop by again. I'm always happy to give feedback on anything. But it's not something that I have as much knowledge about as Sidetrans, obviously. We listen to anything. Yes, exactly. So I'm sorry, I don't know who this person here is, if they're still in chat or not. They were before, because they were the person that had issues joining, I believe. Saranj. I'm really sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Aurora. If you're still here, please fix your link over here. You can just edit the message and then the new link should pop up. In the meantime, I'm going to take this one and we'll have a listen to this one here. I've taken a long break from producing and I feel like getting back into it again more. This is the latest track I was working on. It's not finished, especially mixing, so you have to put the volume a bit higher due to the headroom I still have on the track. Thanks for your efforts and well-made videos. My artist name is Nabo, by the way. So this is going to be Nabo with Zooniverse. It is indeed a little bit old, yeah, as you can see from last year. Can't scan file for viruses. I doubt a WAV file has a virus in it, even when I'm playing it in the browser. We'll drop by when the mix is done a little bit more. Thanks, guys. You're welcome. Kick and bass has some very weird spike going on here. Overall, I do like its tonality. I don't think that having the kick be lower in its highest frequency than the bass is a good thing. So what I would probably do is maybe either low pass the bass a little bit more or make the kick go up a little bit in terms of its starting frequency. I do like the kind of knock that you have in it. But as this is still work in progress, I'm assuming that you're going to clean something like this up and catch it then. Probably need to adjust the phase somewhat, or maybe phase shift the higher frequencies a bit more. There you have a very loud sound. I like the sound selection. Sound design is very well done. I would say the hats are a little bit dull. They could be a little bit brighter. And I feel like there's no first closed hat, right, that you normally see over here. And even on top of the kick.
Welcome to the universe, where all your dreams come true. Now, our first stop today on the tour.
I like how the vocals are mixed. What I don't like is that we have this synth playing once again. We already had that.
Got legs and another leg on his face. Well, yeah, if you want to get technical, it's fine.
Personally, I would like a track to have a little bit more distinction between the sections. Here we do have a new lead, which is a little bit on the loud side. So we're getting some cool, interesting new stuff here, which is nice.
I'm General Manager Bob, and I'm a
You can even see it in the waveform that it's too loud, right? It doesn't play anymore. I like the constant changing of the bass melody. That keeps the track a little bit more interesting. That's psychedelic. It is indeed, yes. Very. The sound design is very, very good. Overall, I would say one thing the track is missing is maybe a little bit of extra interest in the stereo width. Some of the sounds do have a nice stereo feel, but a lot of them sound a little bit too mono, like the main synth.
The naked little squashed up hairy boy. You know, with a handbeat. The brown little hand-foot man. The gorilla.
Also, I feel like the drum loop is getting stale at this point. This is the kind of problem that you run into if you build up the track where the energy goes up, the drum starts to play, and then you never go back down again. At some points the drums just become boring because it's the same sound over and over again. Yeah, this is probably going to be the outro, right? Yeah. So I believe we had drums up until this point from the very first moment that they came in to the track. Overall though, those are, I think, all of the things that I mentioned are just details. And overall I do really like the sounds that you're going on in here and the overall track as well. This sounds cool. Cool stuff. Let's see if there's new tracks in here. Yes, there is. This is the updated version of this one over here. So this is Phobia. I'm sorry. Mispronouncing things is not my strongest thing, as you guys know. Anyway, let's have a listen to this one. You guys can already submit other tracks, of course, for the next one, because this is the last track that we have for now. Sounds really cool so far, really liquidy with all of the reverbs and all of the little detail sounds that you're using. Maybe at this point, because you're going into the flute, don't have the clock come back. That's really just for the start of the intro, and at this point the flute kind of takes over as the main idea. At this point it would also be nice, since you're changing again, for there to be a low respace that slowly kind of volumes in. Up until this point over here, probably.
Everything we do in life, we don't do this because we want to.
Nice vocal mix up until this point.
That's all we're aware of.
Here you definitely have some things coming through the vocal. Probably want those to mix a little bit lower so that the vocal can come through. Because now it's hard to hear what he's saying. Not sure if I'm a fan of the drum and bass or dubstep breakdown before the drop. It sounded off in terms of the key, but I guess it goes down and then back up. Overall, the mix sounds nice here. I like it. Kick and bass is not cleaned up, so the bass line is going into the kick, and the kick is also going into the bass line. You would need to probably resample both of them. Kicking base, I tried looking through everything, I couldn't find it. Nabo here, by the way. Thank you, I hope that the feedback is helpful. I don't know exactly what is causing it either, that I cannot see that far. But I can just see that it's there. Overall, I really like what this track is doing here. A little bit loud there. Might be nice to have a sweep into that. At this point, the delay tail of that thing that we had going on in that mini break should probably stop. I heard it bleeding into this drop here. It's nice to have that separation when the drop actually hits, that you have all of the new sounds coming in and they just completely take over. Overall, not a lot of time to dance in here. This is a almost 9-minute track, and the drops are very short for this one. That means long breakdowns, long waits between parts where you can actually dance. As cool as all of this sound design and all of this stuff really is, I do think it's all a little bit long and a little bit drawn out, and there's not actually enough time to dance. Getting a little bit too progressive for my liking, I guess. I like this part. I would say that the bass line here could use a little bit more second harmonic, that mid-range area over here. And I feel like here we have some pads that really take up that area. Overall though, the mix sounds very clean and I like how this track is balanced. I was gonna say something about that slide bass that we heard in that very first part of the triple drop, but it never came back. I was gonna say it was a little bit on the loud side. Nice transition here back to the rolling pattern. Very strange way to go into the final filtered part there with that very loud, bassy little segment in there. Not a fan of the violins and all of that stuff immediately in here. I would have probably gone with just kick and bass to start off with, some one shots, and then build up to this segment that you had here. I think this riser is a little bit too loud. Overall, I'm not a big fan of your snare, and your open hat is also not really catching through the mix all that well. Kick and bass definitely needs to be cleaned up, as you can see. We're bleeding into transients, we're pushing waveforms up and down. This definitely needs resampling, which we saw before, I think. But overall, apart from those detail things, the production is very solid. I like it. It often may sound like I'm fairly negative. I do want to say this every stream at least once, because there's a lot of new people that come in here. But when I'm giving feedback, I don't want to be continuously talking. Nice little detail here at the end. And apart from a few remarks, I usually tend to only point out negative things so that I'm not speaking over the track the whole time and you guys can actually hear the track as well. Hey, now it didn't autoplay. I did it in the browser and it didn't do the autoplay thing. Very strange. Anyway, so yeah, that may be the reason why I sometimes come off negative and that I only point out the negative things. But that's not a reflection of how I actually feel of the track. Like at the end, I'll usually say like, it's still a nice track, and that is just to say what I actually think of the track, what I actually think of the production. But when I'm playing the track, I just want to point out some of the things that you can actually improve on the track. I think that that's much more valuable information than just saying, oh, this is nice, that is nice, that is nice. So that's kind of how I do my stream when it comes to this feedback stuff. Next up, here's another track of mine, if you don't mind and have time. I have all of the time in the world. In fact, we need more tracks for the stream to remain interesting for the next hour or so-ish. However much longer I want to do the feedback stream. This one, I tried a deeper forest style. Nabo again, but this time with Dain Tree. And in this case, it is mastered. This is also a very old production. Play anyway. Let's see. We have some low harmonics coming in. Indeed, very foresty sounding. I would argue maybe a little bit too gritty of a bass line, that it could close a little bit more on the second spike here. I cannot zoom in horizontally, I think. Unfortunately not, but you can see what I mean, right, with the second spike here. I felt like the intro was a little bit lacking there. By the way, it just kind of started with a kick and bass at some point. People wouldn't want feedback unless they knew the track was good enough. So sadly, the negatives need to be pointed out. So that the lesson is learned. Yeah. For me, it's mainly about. I mean, I can point out the negatives and positive things. For me, it's mainly about not talking too much. I do like all of your sound design that you've going on. Nice, flowy stuff. At some point, I do hope you go into something a little bit more energetic, though. Here we have a little fill, hopefully, and then we go back into the kick and bass with... Yes, some extra energy. At this point, what I would do here is lower some of the main sequences that you have by a few dB. Like this main one that is still flowing through it, up and down. So that those synth sounds can come out a little bit more. Some very loud sounds there. Not really a fan of your snare, it has too much reverb on it. It has too strong of a fundamental that is clashing with that nice talk that you have in the kick drum. Overall, I would say the synths are a little bit loud here. Kick and bass really isn't getting a lot of space to work in this track. You can see it in the waveform even. That's usually the telltale sign of synths being like way too loud. When the waveform, when the synth goes higher or lower or something like that, you can see the waveform kind of increasing in size. Right, like over here. Overall, the sound selection in this track is top notch. I really like the production side of things. It just needs more attention to detail in the mix. I do like the tonality of the kick and bass that you've going on. What I would like to hear is maybe a little bit of stereo processing on the bass line. Since you have this higher frequency stuff up here, that would definitely be stereonized a little bit. Last part was also a little bit empty. Maybe a few extra one-shots would be nice. I do like that you leave the atmospheres out of this spot so that all of the one-shots and all of the unique sound design that you play here doesn't really get masked up by the usual atmospheres that you hear. Here again we have a lot of cool sound design going on, but it's all getting clogged up a little bit. Hard to distinguish what you actually want us to listen to. Some of the sounds I think have a little bit too much delay and reverb as well. Maybe you're going a little bit hard on the ambience side of things. Thanks for the feedback. You're welcome. I'm glad to help. Sorry, it sounded like somebody knocked on my door. Here you can hear some sounds, you can actually see it in the waveform how big of an impact they have on the waveform as they're too loud. It just takes all of the energy out of the kick and bass and just fully overpowers them. It's kind of funny that you have both sections which are too empty and sections that are too full of sounds, because here I'm missing a few, like extra detail sounds, one-shots, little effects, that kind of stuff. You have your main sequence there, and then in other points you have 4 or 5 main sequences, it feels like, that are all fighting for space together. Overall though, very, very interesting track. I do really like it. Let's see if there's any new stuff. Not yet. If you guys want to submit to the feedback, you'll probably land here if you type !feedback like this and follow the link. If you follow the link, you land right here where you can add some of my music to your playlist if you want. Then you can scroll down here and go to feedback on stream and then post your tracks right here and I'll listen to them. So that's how you submit to the feedback. In the meantime, seeing as we have no tracks to listen to, I'll do a little bit more promo, and I'll once again shout out the recent mix that I did on an Eclipse here. You can see it's the first recommended for me. It's the thing that I put on in the break as well. It's a little bit too early for me to take another break. But this mix, I mixed it myself on my little console, and we made all cool visuals for it, as you can see here. It's on 650 views, but we definitely need more of them. And the main thing that we need is watch time. That's really important for us right now on the label account, because we need to get up to 4,000 hours of watch time. So if you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is to watch the whole mix through. That is just good signaling to YouTube, right? Like, YouTube is interested in videos that keeps people on the platform. So if you show YouTube that this isn't video that you're willing to watch for the whole duration of the video, that really helps the YouTube algorithm. Anyway, guys, feel free to send more tracks. We definitely need them, and we're out of them for now. If there's no more new stuff, then I mean, I'll finish the stream early today, I guess. And thanks again for the feedback. You're welcome. Here's another one. Perfect. This is again Nabo. Freia over here. Here's another one, full on this time, to keep the stream content flowing. Thank you. You do have a lot of different styles, I guess. Hey, could I link a track that isn't made by me? No, you need to own full copyright to the music that you submit, as per the rules over here. Thanks for the feedback, you're welcome. I'm not ending it yet, I was only ending it if we didn't have enough music. But now we have some new music. I like it. You can get a little bit more impact out of the kick and bass by playing them on their own for like 16 bars, maybe 30, not 16 bars, 8 bars. Here where this crash comes in, here you would start with the first few atmospheres and then slowly have the synth come in here. The other thing that you can do is in the intro where you have your kick and bass filtered in, lower them by 5 dB. Just those kick and bass. What about Mystic India? My link is not working. I think you're behind on the stream because we already listened to that track. This one over here, we had to listen to it. I meant for your stream, since there was no tracks, just as a listening, my bad. I mean, if I want to put on some music just to listen to, I'll put on my mix, right? Which is the thing that I'm trying to promote here. On the other hand, if I don't have copyright to the material that I'm putting on, my stream gets copyright striked or claimed, and we don't want that to happen, of course. Here again, it feels like there's a few too many elements playing through each other. It's hard for me to determine what you want me to focus on as a listener. Some of the synths overpowering kick and bass a little bit. Atmosphere is a little bit too loud as well, I would say. Some strange clicks going on there. Here again on the kick. Sounds like you have some kind of parallel filter here that makes this part stand out more. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that filtered kick and bass on top of the kick and bass itself. Send 2 tracks we only listened to, but not Mystic India. Ah, did I skip a track? I skipped, because these 2 messages look so similar. I listened to this one over here. Yeah, okay, sorry. I thought we listened to this one over here. Just by the way that I opened up Discord again after listening to, I guess, this one here. Sorry, I'll play it after this, of course. Yeah. Kick and bass definitely needs a little bit of cleaning here and there. Bass alignment could also be better. This waveform looks very, very broken. Overall, I would say the bass volume is a little bit loud for the kick volume. You could probably turn up the kick 2 more dB. Overall, I would say the top drums, the cymbals can be a little bit louder, maybe a little bit more compressed as well, so that they get a little bit crunchier, a little bit airier. And again, it's the same problem that you had with your last track in that the synths are too loud. This is a good use of that filtered kick and bass when you have a fill like that. That makes the fill interesting and keeps the rhythm, but I wouldn't put it on top of the actual kick and bass itself. Overall, cool production, but again, needs a little bit of extra work on the details of the mix just to be right. We have 2 new tracks in here. Of course, I skipped this one over here, so we'll first listen to Mystic India here. Again by Saranj Aurora. I'm really sorry about the pronunciation there, but I suck at that kind of thing. This track is Mystic India, Master 03. I think we're gonna get some triplets. Either that or high tech. By the rhythm that we have here. I'm not a fan of how the delay doubles the high frequency. That you get 2 S sounds here. I usually have my delay so that it doesn't take any of that noise. Again, for kick and bass, filter it in, turn it down by like 5 dB so that you get extra impact of the kick and bass in the drop. Again, kick and bass needs proper cleaning here, proper resampling, because this waveform is just destroyed. Personally, not really a fan of pauses like that. Maybe, yeah, something like a little drum fill in there would be nice. Hello, John. Very, very snappy snare over here. I would probably filter this in, especially with such a snappy transient. Now we go to normal rolling again. Again, not very clean. As you can see, this transient over here is just being destroyed. This is the only clean transient that is coming through. Also, the kick has issues. So definitely resample your bassline. When it comes to reverse kicks like this, what I like to do is chop off the transient so that it reverses up until a certain point and that the click still happens. Because now what happens, it goes up and then down again. It kind of zaps. Zoom, instead of having that click that you would normally associate with a kick transient. A little bit low energy for all the drums that are happening here. It would be nice if the snares actually filtered open here. It feels like this one acid thing is out of key. I'm not really a fan of the snare, I would say. I would like a little bit of a shorter snare. I'm usually a fan of snappier snares. This one has a lot of body, like final part to it that sits after the kick transient. I like mine to be a bit snappier. I do like the sound of what you're doing here, but I do feel like some other spaces the synths were a little bit too loud. Here the mix is sounding good. Although I'm not a fan of the riser that you have in here. I think in general you make risers a little bit too loud. I heard that in the other track as well. Because risers are supposed to be supportive elements, not a main element that kind of stands out and that grabs the attention. Here again you get that weird click with the reverse kick drum not being tailed off. This analyzer setup is so satisfying. It's just for instances of signalizer. I like that gliding bass that you have here with a little bit of stereo. It's strange that it's the darkest bass out of all of them that actually has some stereo with. Is it like a standard layout or a personalized setup that you made? It's 4 presets from a guy named Muzar that I took and just arranged around my camera. But it's 4 windows of the plugin. So there's one window over here, one window over here, one window over here, and then one window over here. And all of them are, I would say, close to default presets of Signalizer. And they just all use the different tools in here. There's 2 different variations of the spectrum, and then vector scope and oscilloscope. I meant the placement of the stereo and waveform on the top and the frequency spectrum on the bottom. Yeah, I just did that around the camera, what worked best for the camera. There's no reason why this one is the highest, this one is the lowest, or this one is the middle and this one is the lowest, no. Is Signalizer VST or standalone? It's a VST. As you can see, it's just hosted in here inside of my Ableton. If you want this rack, you can find it in resources. In the pinned message, there you have analyzers-2, which is this thing over here. And you just drop that onto a track to analyze it. Even on this last instrument, a little bit of stereo width would make this instrument that sitar thing, I guess. I don't know exactly what it is, so please don't quote me on it. But that would make it a lot more interesting to listen to. Right now it feels a little bit just bland in the mix. So overall, again, nice track, but it needs some extra work on some of the details. We have some more tracks. We have, I think, quite a few new tracks here. 1, 2, 3 new tracks that I still need to listen to. How long have I been streaming? I have been streaming for over 2 hours now, so I'm going to take another quick break. And then we'll listen to all 3 of these tracks. You guys can obviously submit more if you want to. But I'll probably do another hour after the break or so of streaming. For now, let me just get the mix ready. Again, for those that are just joining, I recently released a mix on Eclipse, our label here. This is the April mix, the second one that I ever did. We really need the watch time, so if you want to support us, the best way to do that in this label part is to watch this thing all the way through. I personally like to just have it as background audio when I'm editing or something like that. So whenever you're doing work and you need some sidetracks to just distract you a little bit, you'll know where to find it. Right here, Eclipse Sound Syndicate on YouTube. Anyway, I'm going to put on the mix once again so that you guys have something nice to listen to and look at while I'm gone. I'm going to take a 10-minute or so break and then I'll be back and we'll listen to all 3 of the tracks that are submitted at that point, as well as some of the other ones. And as I said, you guys can just keep submitting.
nature holds rest.
yeah, if you want to hear more of that mix, then please go do so. That really helps the channel out a ton. For now, we're going to continue with the feedback with this Rebirth Time Odyssey track over here. Do you use the spectral analyzer? I do use this spectral analyzer sometimes when producing. In general, when it comes to spectrum though, I use the built-in spectrum analyzer in EQ8 or MEQ most of the time. MEQ when I'm in Reaper, when I'm actually mixing, and EQ8 when I'm just producing. That for production, EQ8 is good enough in terms of EQ work, but for mixing, also because EQ8 doesn't work in Reaper. But I like to have a little bit more of a beefy EQ, which M equalizer and its whole range of different EQs can provide. Anyway, Time Odyssey by Rebirth over here. Let's have a listen. I think we heard this track also before. It already starts with some very crazy and noisy and unpredictable sound design here. Which I would say I hear a lot. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, but there's not so much really a story in here. Like, it's not really building up to anything. Especially right now, it just turns off completely. It's also very noisy, very reverby here, so it's hard to hear any of the details in the sound design that you're doing. You try the Audija oscope? No point in, since you already have Signalizer. I mean, I don't use Signalizer for my oscilloscope. Most of the time I use Psyscope. But yeah, I would have that already. Synth just kind of comes out of nowhere. There's way too many things happening in here. Kick and bass is very, very stereo. It's not that my thing is broken. It's actually this stereo, the kick and bass. That is very strange. There's way too much things happening in here for me to actually be able to decode what's going on musically. This is the point where it starts to make sense, and really before this point there shouldn't have been any sequences. Because you just should be slowly building up stuff. Here the open hat suddenly is removed. There's also no fills in here. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense from a music standpoint. Like, it's very loud, it's very in your face. The kick and bass probably sounds good on its own. But there's no rhyme or reason to any of the placement of the elements. I have no idea what's happening at this point. There's this constant washout noise feeling. Here this synth is way too loud. That sounds nice. I would disagree. I don't like the idea of just throwing more and more and more sounds on top of it to see if you can get it very loud and to see if that works. I don't think that this is a good way of producing a track, whatever you're doing. Because I can just hear every lead you try to make it louder, and you just went overboard here. I think there's some phase issues on the low end from too much stereo. Yeah, among other things. There's a lot of issues in this track. To be honest, the kick and bass is not the main thing I would worry about in this track. For the track, the kick and bass sounds good enough. Mainly just the arrangement, the placement of elements, how many elements are in there, but also the quality of the sound design is a little bit lacking in that you're doing a lot of very chaotic things, and it doesn't really form any kind of structure. I also think I'm not a fan of the fact that you're trying to use a melody with all of the different elements. Or I guess chords. Even here there's like 4 or 5 different sounds playing at any given time. Strange to start off with 4 kicks and then have the bass come in later. Sounds like you forgot to copy in the first 4 bass parts. Suddenly everything stops at a random point. Do you know what I mean by the track not having a structure? Very, very loud synth. I'm turning it down for myself, but I don't think I can really turn it down for the stream. But it's really just crushing at this point any limiter that it's going into. Now I know this producer, I am a little bit sad that this is happening because I know this producer, and about 6 months ago he was also very active in my server, submitting his music for feedback all the time, and he had the exact same issues. Like, I feel like the issues that I hear here in the track are the same issues as the tracks that I remember from back then. But he just started writing a little bit faster and he made his kick and bass slightly better. The main structural issues, the actual things that are interesting in the track, have not really improved much, in my opinion. See, for example, there's just stuff randomly cutting out right after a kick. Very stereo bassline, as you could see. Some very strange decisions, for sure, in that track there. Yeah, overall, I think your music needs a lot of improvement to get to the point where you probably want to be. And that just means that you need to spend a lot more time worrying about the details and the structuring of the track. Where do I place different elements? I have a video coming up on that, but this doesn't go into the quantity of elements. I think at any given time you could do with at least half the amount of elements that you now have in terms of sequences that you're placing in certain parts. The second thing is that the flow of the track is all over the place. It doesn't really have a nice flow to it. And then the third thing is that you're trying to make the element work like at multiple times. To be honest, that is probably a bad idea. And this is the thing that I opened with, I believe, in the 10 beginner mistakes that I often hear. trying to take one sound and making that sit throughout the whole track. I hear it all the time, and it just makes the track sound a lot more boring. It sounds like you cannot really come up with any new sounds, and you're just trying to play the same melody over and over again, or the same idea over and over again. That's why I would say maybe like a quarter of the tracks that I have in any production are one-shots that I only play once in a specific part of the track, or drums that I only use in one specific feel, or stuff like that. All to just make sure that different parts have different interesting things in them. And then if you look at the sequences, even most of the sequences just play in one part. I'll link the beginner mistake videos because I think it's a good video as well. This one over here, I believe it's the first point that I mentioned in this video. I see that I have to be more simple. Yeah, not just more simple, but more actively thinking about the actual structure that your track needs to have. It just logically try to build up tracks that function in segments of 16 bars for a start. Work with the drum placement to indicate the energy level of certain parts of the track. Don't make the mistake that you go from a very low energy part of the track, which might be the intro or break, into a part where the kick and bass is playing with all of the drums and everything is high energy, and then it goes down again and then up again and down and up and down and up and all over the place. Essentially, for each drop segment, you want to have one nice flow to it like this, in terms of the energy level. For progressive stuff, that is more important. For other types of sidelines, that is less important. But overall, I just feel like, yeah, the only real way that I can describe it, what your problem is with your music, is that you're trying to either do too much, or you don't really have a purpose for the things that you try to add to the track. I am sorry if that sounds a little bit harsh. I just like to give the truth. And that's how I feel about the track here. It just feels like, hey, I've seen this cool sound from a tutorial, let's make it and let's try to put it into the track without really questioning what its purpose should be in the musical idea. Anyway, next up we have Neil here, putting one out there. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this. I was trying to form it in my head, but it's not going to happen. We have Goacraze. I like that title. Nice cool play there with the reverb sound there. I don't think I'm a fan of the hats playing at different velocities. It feels like it goes like chuk chuk. Also, the kick sounds a little bit off. I know it's supposed to be more old school of a vibe, but it feels like it doesn't really cut through the mix. Also, when you're doing kick rolls, I saw it before, try to resample your kick so that this part of the kick doesn't bleed into the transient of the next kick that you're playing. I'll see if I can pause a kick. Yeah, here you can see it. Here's a kick playing, here there's a kick playing, but it kind of bleeds into this kick drum over here. You don't want that to happen. Not really a fan of the snare that you chose either. You have a snare that has a lot of lower mids over here, and for some reason the kick isn't in there. But even if it were, or even if it isn't, I would remove those lower frequencies from the snare and just focus on the noise component. Overall though, the vibe is there. Also, over here, I feel like the track is becoming a little bit stale. For one, it feels like there's no real fills, apart from the drum rolls. It would be nice to have a fill that is just one bar of no kick and bass, no drums, and then go back into it with a completely different synth or something like that. Because it's starting to feel like you're just, again, trying to reuse the same sounds. I don't know the exact structure for Psy, but what can help is to make the drop first and then make an intro, a break, and a build up and outro. Then do intro, break, build up, drop, break, build up, drop, break, etc. I mean, not really. Psytrance isn't that rigid, I would say. There is something that I explain in that we have 2 drop structures and 3 drop structures. I guess most of the people start with their drop because they start with kick and bass, right? But I would personally recommend getting the intro out of the way fairly early on in the production. At least the basic intro, and then you can go back into actually adapting it into the rest of the track once you're finished. I like that we hear some new sound design in here. That zappy lead, that... I like that thing. I feel like your crashes are slightly too loud. Sounds like nits or not. Is that the Finnish kind of Psy? That special subgenre of Psytrance that they have in Finland? Overall, I would say that it's starting to sound like we're using the same ideas over and over again. Especially when it comes to stuff like kick rolls and stuff like that. I feel like all of these kick rolls have been the same throughout the whole track. No, die is roll. Okay. Finish is Suomi. Aha. Because I've heard about its existence, I just don't know anything about it. Overall, I like the sound design. I like the overall mix for an old school track. It's very nice. There's some details in the kick and bass, mainly the kick resynthesis that needs to be done better. And the overall thing that I would say is that just there's not enough real change over time. I guess that may be part of the Goa vibe. But I'm personally not really a fan of it. Just continuously repeating the same roll every 4 or 8 bars, something like that. Is not something that is particularly interesting to me. The old school tracks used to reuse melodies too, and sometimes to reach the vibers you need to. I mean, yeah, but there's a difference between reusing a melody and keeping the synth interesting and constantly morphing and changing and stuff like that, and just reusing the same elements, the same musical idea. But you need to modulate the sound. Exactly, you need to turn it into a different idea. Next up, we have Enkel Sun over here. Part of my now almost finished EP. The theme is a bit heavy. Okay. Nuclear Nightmares. Yeah, that sounds pretty heavy. It would be cool if it stayed faster, like somebody is dying and then it slowly fades out. Let's see, we should have a few more tracks here. Yes. This was this track here. 13 seconds in the stream. And we're going to see if he has done it better now. I like this. I like it a lot more, yeah. You could even close the envelope a little bit faster if you wanted to, but it's sounding good at this point. What I would personally choose to do though, even though this is high-tech, is make the second note a little bit quieter. I know it's supposed to be like 3 notes playing all the way through. And then if you're using this kick, make sure that it fades out to 0 over here, so that it doesn't bleed into this bass note over here. Or if you make it a little bit quieter, you can have a little bit of bleeding, right? Right now you can see it's bleeding because this transient is just way higher than this one over here. And it has a different color, meaning that it has different frequency content. So this is just the high frequency of that high click there, whereas this is that high frequency of the high click plus the low sine wave from the kick still playing. Yes, it was the phase, not envelope. Yeah, I mean, there's many things that contribute to it. In this case, I like the phase setup that you have then, and I would just close the envelope a little bit faster still. But overall, this is a much better bass sounds than the ones that you showed before. Okay, we have 2 more tracks, I think. Just 2 unreleased tracks back to back here by Dem Mapsai. So let's start with the first one, I guess. Just straight into it like this. I like to see it return here to 0. I don't know why it's going higher here. It does seem like you resample it, but for some reason there's another filter on it later or something. Maybe you high passed your master channel. Overall, sound design sounds very, very fresh. Very loud vocal. I would lower its delay. I would make more space for it in the mix, and then I would turn it down a bit. Overall, I like it. Vibe is definitely there. I like how you're changing sound design over time. Here it becomes more squelchy based. feel like there are some sounds that are completely mono still, so you would need to pay some attention to this stereo thing. With something like M stereo spread or M stereo processor, if you already have a little bit of stereo generated in the past, then you can widen it a lot more. But the main kind of bandpass filter in here feels like it's completely mono. Here what I would do is I would take my drums and lower them slightly in volume over the build-up part. That towards the end the kick and bass kind of comes out of it on its own. Not a fan of the first bass note being lower in volume than the second one. I think this is your sidechaining triggering in a certain way. That's why I like to use velocity over sidechaining, because then it just adapts the volume of the note and not kind of like glide into the note sometimes, which you sometimes see. Overall though, nice track, nice start. It is still unreleased. I don't know if you are going to work on it more, but he has another track here, and that's probably going to be the last one for today because I've been live for 3 hours. So I think that that's basically enough. So I'm just going to close the queue here, and then we have one more track to listen to. Another unreleased 149 BPM, and in this case G sharp instead of D sharp. G instead of D.
Some people go to parties for all different types of reasons. They might want to go there to pick up a girl, or they might want to go there and have a fight, or they might want to go there and look, but how do you get bliss?
I know this vocal is very, very iconic, but that doesn't mean that you can hide it in the mix. Right now there's a lot of stuff going on in the high frequencies, meaning that it's hard to understand what the vocal is actually saying. Nice kick and bass. Let's see if we clean this one. It does look like you're cleaning it, but for some reason it still stays lower and higher over here. I suspect that there's another filter somewhere in your signal chain that is just like removing the lowest frequencies or something like that in your master. Maybe you're doing that. If you want to do that, do it with linear phase. The pre-ringing is far less of a problem than any of the post-ringing in terms of crunch. But if you don't actually need it, if there's not actually any stuff there, or if you don't have a good reason to remove it on the master and not in individual elements maybe, then just remove the high pass altogether. If it's not doing anything, then remove it. I like how the vocals sit in here. They do have their nice own space there, so they can just shine through a little bit better there. Overall, in this track, I would also say that your synths could be maybe a dB and a half quieter if you just take the whole group of them. There hasn't been any synth that stood out as massively loud, but it does feel like the kick and bass doesn't really have full power when it's cutting through the mix. At this point, I will remove the top drums there if you have the kick and bass filtered, especially if you go to a lower energy like you're going over here. It's nice for the listener to already hear that we're going lower energy. I like that we have some new sounds here. I like the format thing that we're listening to here. That's really new in this part of the track. You do need to attend to its stereo field though, because it's completely mono. Usually for sounds that you want centered, it is still nice to have a little bit of stereo wave on them, that you just distinguish it from the kick and bass. Like if your synth sound sounds like this, it's going to sound pretty mono. If your synth sound looks like this on an analyzer, it's going to sound pretty mono. You have to take into account that what we're looking at here is the master, so this includes the kick and bass. That makes the track, the totality of the track, much narrower. Meaning that for some synths you're going to have a much wider stereo. If you just play some synths, it might even be out of phase in certain parts. That is perfectly fine, as long as the totality isn't, once it's all summed together. So you can kind of make use of the idea that the kick and bass is going to push everything to the more mono part once it all sums together. By making your synths a little bit wider than that, they're going to sound a little bit more separated. And if your synth sound, as I said, looks like this on its own, then it's a good mono source. And if it looks like this on its own, then it's probably a good stereo synth kind of thing. Then it's really going to have a nice effect coming from the side. But right now what I'm hearing is certain sounds are just like a flat or a vertical line, which indicates being fully mono, which usually isn't a great idea. When the kick plays on its own, you can see like a strange wiggle at the end. Let's see if I can pause it somewhere. This one doesn't have it. Here you can basically still see slight bits of the wiggle that is coming from this kick for some reason. But that is the part that was bleeding into the bass line, I think. Synth just suddenly becomes louder when the kick and bass is not playing. That's a little bit strange. Overall, cool track, cool sound design. I like it. This one, I liked it a little bit more than the other one that you sent. Both need work on the details, but they are very close for being ready for release. With that, I'm going to end the stream. I hope that everybody enjoyed the feedback and that it was useful for them. As I said many times, you guys can support the channel by listening to our mix. So I'm going to leave off with a link to that, so that you guys have something to watch for the next hour and 10 minutes, however long it is, 12 minutes. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do that, the best way to support our label venture is to just listen to the thing the whole way through. That gives us extra watch time, which is very beneficial for the channel. So please do that for us if you want to. Thank you. See you all in the next stream, which will be somewhere during the week. I'll try to do another production stream now that I've fixed my audio issues.